God forever and ever.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the letter of St. James. My brothers and sisters, do you, with your acts of favoritism, really believe in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ? For if a man with gold rings and in fine clothes comes into your assembly, and if a poor person in dirty clothes also comes in, and if you take notice of the one wearing the fine clothes and say, have a seat here, please, while to the one who is poor you say, stand there, or sit at my feet, have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers and sisters. Has not God chosen the poor in the world to be rich in faith and to be heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him? The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Returning from the region of Tyre, Jesus went by of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee, in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a man who was deaf and who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. Jesus took him aside in private away from the crowd and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then, looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, He has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear, and the mute to speak. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There have been divisions in the society and even in families all the time. However, in our times, these divisions are so extreme and we don't want to listen to each other. Somehow, we demonize those people who are opposite to our opinions. And we wonder why. Because we are so much controlled and manipulated by mass media and social media, and these are in your hands, on your cell phones. There are so many divisions, censorship, public opinion manipulation, and media control. We thought that science and technology would liberate us, but instead, they actually control us. And we are divided, and we hate each other, and we do not listen to each other. In that sense, we become actually more deaf than before. Today, in the Gospel, Jesus shows how much he wants to liberate people from deafness and muteness. He still wants to open our ears, open our eyes. But most of all, he wants to open our spiritual deafness. And these spiritual deafness, because it has so profound effects on other levels of deafness, he wants to open this thing first. And our spiritual states of our openness determines our directions of our life. That's why spiritual deafness is so dangerous, and spiritual blindness is very dangerous to all of us. These spiritual deafness or spiritual blindness mainly originate from sins, more particularly from capital sins. And we all know pride, envy, greed, sloth, gluttony, lust, and wrath are those 7 capital sins. But now, when you think of our mass media and social media, or movies and these things, they actually promote these 7 deadly sins. And some of the TV stations have their dedicated channels to these things. And they have specialized programs for these sins. They want to promote greed. How many shows we have that they want to make more money, how to make more money. And they come out and compete for more money. And we have dedicated channels for food. And we just glorify all these food business and incites our appetites to unlimited degree. Of course, lust. Every single Hollywood movies has to have this element of sexual desires. To incite these sexual desires, our base instinct. And how many idol shows we have, American Idols, Canadian Idols, every single country have their idol shows to promote human pride. And how many movies are now openly promote anger and revenge. There's no more mercy, but wrath is the virtue. Revenge is a virtue. How many movies are promoting these things? We see all of these things. So the more we expose ourselves to mass media and social media, and then we actually become more and more deaf to spiritual goods. And often we are manipulated. That's why we have so much of extreme opinions. Rather than talking to people directly and having real relationship, and we are controlled by these images and these opinions from these media, and then we demonize other people and we don't want to listen to them. But when we actually speak to those people who have very different opinions, when we will find we actually share more things in common. But when someone is just engrossed in social media all the time and absorbs what they just like, and then what happens is the other people are they're just from different planet. But in fact, we share way more things in common. But we can only find those things through our real and genuine relationship when we actually talk to the people, not through these medias and not just through absorption of these opinions manipulated by those people who have secret agendas. My brothers and sisters, Jesus still wants to open our eyes and our ears. But as long as we stay and bury ourselves in these media contents all the time, and we will remain deaf and blind. We want to increase our exposure to spiritual goods, reading the gospel, and actually speaking to people and having genuine relationship with others. And then our reality will become true reality, not living in some manipulated virtual reality. Jesus still wants to open our ears and open our eyes. It is up to us whether we bring ourselves to Him or just remain in this chaos where only division and hatred eats itself and brings more chaos to itself.